Good morning, everybody. I'm Barry Friedman. That's F-R-I-E-D-M-A-N. I'm a law professor at New York University School of Law, and I'm the faculty director of the Policing Project. The Policing Project's mission is to work with all stakeholders to ensure that policing is democratically accountable, is racially just, and is transparent. I'm here with two very fine Atlanta lawyers, Allegra Lawrence Hardy and from Lawrence Bundy, and Rick Dean from Jones Day. You'll be hearing from them in just a moment. We are all of us together representing Clayton English and André, who will also be speaking in just a moment. I'd appreciate it if we could get through our remarks, and then unfortunately Clayton's got to run off, but the rest of us will be here to answer any questions that you have. So we are filing suit on behalf of Mr. English and Mr. André against Clayton County, Georgia. The Clayton County Police Department, along sometimes with the Clayton County District Attorney's Office, has been conducting interdiction of passengers on jet bridges as they're getting on their airplanes to ask them about whether they have drugs on them. So it goes like this. Passengers who've already been through TSA screening, have been to a gate agent and presented their ticket, get on the jet bridge. You all know what that looks like, that confined area where you're walking onto the plane. And two officers will pop out, flash their badges, and start peppering people with questions about whether they have drugs in their bags, whether they use certain kinds of drugs. Mr. English and Mr. André will give you an example of how that happens. It's not a particularly successful interdiction program, as Mr. Dean will explain. They've come up with very little drugs, but they've taken a lot of cash off of passengers. So we are filing under two provisions of the United States Constitution, and I'd like to explain both of them to you and explain how they fit in. So first, we're filing under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. And the argument is an obvious one, which is that these individuals who are getting on the airplane have been seized against their will and forced to have conversations with the police about what's in their luggage, and occasionally there are searches of the luggage. The Clayton County Police Department said in a press conference after Mr. André was stopped that the stops were consensual. And I think you can probably understand how implausible that is. All of us have been on jet bridges. Our mission is to get to our seat, to get settled, and to get where we're going. And the last thing any of us want to do is stop and forcibly answer questions with law enforcement about what's in our luggage. The other claim is under the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution, the clause that guarantees racial equality and prohibits racial discrimination. And for you to understand the nature of this claim, I just want to give you some data. So we filed public records requests with the Clayton County Police Department for stops that occurred between September 2020, when Mr. English was stopped, and April 21, when Mr. André was stopped. And there were 402 stops of individuals. 378 of those had the race recorded. So that's the number that we know the race, 378. And of that number, 211 were black. That's 56% of the number of folks who were stopped on those jet bridges, and incidentally 68% were people of color. 8% of American air travelers are black. So if 8% of the people who were stopped had been black, that'd be about 30 folks. But instead it was 211. So we consulted with statisticians and econometricians to figure out what were the odds that this would happen randomly, because the police told Mr. André that this was a random stop, that's why he was stopped. And it turns out that the odds that you would get 211 out of 378 people stopped who are black are, this is almost too remarkable for me to say, significantly less than 1 in 100 trillion. Obviously what was happening on that jet bridge is the Clayton County Police Department was racially profiling individuals, pulling them aside, requesting their identification, and then asking them questions about drug use and drug possession. Just one last word for me. The Policing Project is filing this suit in particular because we have a great concern about police acting when there's no policy in place, particularly democratically accountable policy, that guides the discretion of police officers. When there's undue discretion, you get what you have here, which is severe racial discrimination, and that's what we think needs to stop. I'm going to introduce first Mr. English, and he'll tell you what happened to him.
Good morning. On October 30th, 2020, I was flying from Atlanta to Los Angeles, and I was racially profiled at the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. I had already gone through security, and I already presented the gate agent with my ticket. I was almost on the plane when, in the jet bridge, 2 officers popped out, showed their badges, and started asking questions whether I had illegal drugs like cocaine and meth. I felt cornered in that jet bridge, and I felt the need to comply. They made me move to the side of the tunnel where they took my ticket and ID, and they asked me questions and asked if they could search my bag. They took my bag and they searched it. And part of the reason I'm here today is because this needs to stop. I felt completely powerless. I felt violated. I felt cornered. I felt like I couldn't, continue to get on the plane. I felt like I had to comply if I wanted everything to go smoothly. And while all this happened, passengers continued to board the plane. And it's confusing because I wasn't sure what the issue was. What did I do wrong? And once they actually gave my ticket back and my ID, I was able to get on the plane. But for the next 3.5 hours, I was, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm gonna get arrested when I land. What did I do wrong? Is this something that normally happens to people? But because of the situation and the circumstance, I didn't even ask anybody that worked for Delta or say anything about it. And once I saw André's tweet about the situation that happened to him, it immediately reminded me of my same situation with fellow comedians. I reached out to him and I told him the same thing that happened to me. And I think we're here because a lot of people have probably had this happen to them and feel like there's no course of action for them to take, or they just have to let things happen to them. And I think we're here to speak up for those people.
Thank you. By the way, I misspoke and said September when I meant October, and I also failed to state the obvious, which is that Mr. English and Mr. André are both accomplished actors and comedians. Now, Eric André.
Okay. Just like my friend, Mr. English, I too had an incident with the Clayton County Police Department at the Atlanta airport last year. I was flying home from a work trip from a television show I was filming, connecting through Atlanta, flying to my home in Los Angeles. Went through TSA, went to my gate, gave the gate agent my ticket, got on the jet bridge just to enter the plane when the Clayton County police officers came out of nowhere in like almost like an ambush style and started singled me out. I was the only person of color on the jet bridge at the time, all white people in front of me and behind me. They singled me out. They asked me if I was selling drugs, transporting drugs, what kind of drugs I have on me, and it was clearly racial profiling. The experience was humiliating and dehumanizing. It was degrading. I had all the other passengers squeezing by me on this claustrophobic jet bridge, gawking at me like I was a perpetrator when I had done nothing wrong. Definitely did not feel like a consensual encounter whatsoever. When 2 cops stop you, you don't feel like you have the right to leave, especially when they start interrogating you about drugs. The whole experience was traumatizing. I felt belittled, and I want to use my resources and my platform to bring national attention to this incident so that it stops. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Richard Dean, and I'm a lawyer with Jones Day. We're here, as you've heard from Mr. Friedman, from Mr. André, from Mr. English, to join in the representation of these young men, because we too believe that these stops were unconstitutional. We believe they were illegal, and we believe that they were based largely, if not solely, on race. And that, in our country, is unconstitutional. The Clayton County Police Department has described this program as a drug and addiction program. From what we're able to see by simply looking at the open records information that we've received, it seems to be a distinctly unsuccessful drug and addiction program, if that's what it is. What appears to be happening is that this is organized largely in order to seize money from people on the hope that they're not going to thereafter make a claim for those funds. Over the period that Mr. Friedman has described, which was roughly from September of 20 to April of 21, the preliminary indication is that the Clayton County Police Department seized over $1 million. During that same period of time, where we had 378 encounters where we know the race of the people who were stopped, who were approached, it appears that there were only 3 instances in which the drug interdiction program actually interdicted drugs. There were 3 small quantity drug seizures. One seemingly had to do with 6 prescription pills. The other seemingly, and I say seemingly because these are preliminary determinations on our part, appears to have been just a personal use amount of some drug. And yet, there was $1 million seized. There were 378 people who were encountered, and as Mr. Friedman pointed out, 211 of those people were African American. We think that's unconstitutional. Thank you.
That's us. As I said, Mr. English has to run, but the rest of us are here to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, I just feel like the hundreds of black people that the Clayton County Police Department interrogated on this jet bridge don't have the access or platform that I have or Mr. English has. So it's beyond just our individual cases. We feel like if black people don't stand up for each other, who will? So we want to use our platform to help out the black community and give a voice to those people that don't have our resources or our platform. Yeah.
Does it make it difficult to want to come back here and work?
Honestly, yeah, a little bit. Every time I'm in the Atlanta airport, I worry I'm going to run into those officers again or be interrogated again. It was a traumatic experience, and that trauma comes with a trigger, So, yeah, it does make an experience like that makes you feel unwelcomed, like you don't belong by your own government. So it's sad.
Now that the case is kind of out here, you're pursuing really, what are the next steps that we're
I hope that they stop racially profiling black people on the jet bridge, for one. But we want to bring national attention to this incident because we're sure that it's not an isolated incident. It's not just the Clayton County Police Department doing this to black people. So we just want this kind of racial profiling to stop. It's unethical. Yeah.
Well, procedurally, the case will go forward as any other civil case. There will be discovery, there will be opportunities to learn more of the details and so forth, but we're intending to go forward as you would with any other lawsuit, and hopefully to an end that points out and the court concludes that this is an impermissible conduct by law enforcement. I have a long history in law enforcement and very supportive of law enforcement, but we think this conduct is outside of legitimate law enforcement interests.
Would there be look at the police officers involved in say for instance in the future if this happens again, are there going to be more steps or preliminary actions to kind of get rid of that? Like, you talk the racial profiling the seats, so are you going to look at the people maybe that are in these positions that are doing it, how they're being hired, anything like that? Is there anything you can speak to with that?
So the lawsuit names Clayton County, Georgia, and then the individual officers that we know that were involved. we believe that it's the county and the police department in particular that are responsible. They received monthly reports of the number of people that were stopped and the race and what was found. So they had full information as this went along about what was happening, and it didn't take much to realize that there was racial profiling going on. The numbers were, as I pointed out, astounding in terms of the imbalance. And so our hope is that there's liability on behalf of the county itself, as well as the individual officers.
In your research, were y'all able to determine how long this sort of thing has been going on there at Hartsfield Jackson?
So we don't know. We have some documents, and hopefully we will have others, but that indicate that there was a drug interdiction program in the airport for at least 5 years, starting, I believe, in 2016. But we don't know what was going on in that drug interdiction program. What we did was when we understood the facts of Mr. English's and Mr. Andre's case, we did public records requests for the period that spanned when they were stopped, and then that's where we got the data that we've seen.
As far as you know, is the Clayton County Police Department still doing this?
We do not know if they're still doing this. We hope to find out. We know that they're still engaging in drug interdiction in the airport, but we're not precisely sure what form it's taking. I'm reminded that we actually would love to hear from other individuals who are stopped in the airport. We've tried to reach out, and if anybody hears Mr. Andre's story and had the same thing happen to them, we'd like to know about it. Anything else? Can't thank you enough for coming, and please stay in touch.